Hours later, the first light of a new day rises over the dry plains of northern Tanzania. A pale glow spreads across the horizon as the sun slowly climbs above the thorn-covered acacia trees, bathing the red earth in shades of gold and amber. The cool air of dawn carries the sounds of a wilderness coming back to life, marking the beginning of another day in a land where every decision can mean the difference between survival and failure. As daylight gradually overtakes the darkness, a small band of hunters leaves the camp in silence. Worn wooden bows rest against their shoulders, while handcrafted arrows sway with each careful step, simple weapons that have accompanied them on countless journeys across the savannah. No one raises their voice, and there is little need for words. A brief glance and a quiet nod are all it takes for each man to understand his place. Within moments, they spread out and disappear into the vast grasslands, beginning another search for food in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Their journey began at a patch of ground where wild boars had passed during the night. The cool morning sand still preserved the sharp outlines of their tracks, untouched by the heat of the rising sun. One of the hunters knelt beside the trail and carefully ran his fingers over the impressions, studying their depth and direction with practiced precision. After a moment, he silently motioned to the others. Without exchanging a word, the group pressed deeper into the savannah, following the hidden path left behind by their quarry. From that point forward, every movement had to be calculated. The hunters advanced carefully through the dense brush, placing each step with precision to avoid snapping twigs or rustling the dry leaves beneath their feet. In the silence of the savannah, even the smallest mistake could give away their position. They remained constantly aware of the shifting wind, knowing that if their scent drifted toward the boars, the animals would disappear into the wilderness long before they could be seen. It wasn't long before the hunting dogs sensed something ahead. Their behavior changed almost instantly. Instead of charging recklessly into the undergrowth, they veered off course and moved with quiet determination, their bodies tense and focused. For the hunters, the message was unmistakable. Somewhere beyond the brush, a herd of wild boars was close, and the chase was about to begin. Recognizing the dog's warning, the hunters quickly shifted into position and fanned out across the brush in a wide arc. Each man kept his distance, creating a loose circle meant to block every possible escape route. In the unforgiving wilderness, success depends less on speed than on patience, teamwork, and precise timing. Every movement had a purpose, and every hunter understood his role without the need for words. Moments later, an arrow sliced silently through the cool morning air and found its mark before vanishing into the dense vegetation. Startled by the sudden attack, the wild boar burst into the thicket, crashing through the undergrowth in a desperate attempt to escape. The hunters did not give chase recklessly. Instead, they followed at a steady pace, conserving their energy and allowing the wounded animal to tire itself out. When they were certain it could go no farther, they approached cautiously and ended its suffering as swiftly and humanely as possible. There were no cheers or celebrations after the hunt. The men stood quietly for a moment, paying respect to the life that had been lost to sustain their own. For the Hadzabe, hunting is not a conquest over nature or a display of dominance. It is a way of life rooted in necessity, guided by generations of knowledge and a profound understanding of the fragile balance that connects every living creature on the African savanna. Wild boars, however, are far from the most dangerous animals that roam the savanna. On some journeys, the hunters come across the unmistakable tracks of a lion pressed into the soft earth. The Hadzabe know better than most that a lion is no ordinary creature. As one of Africa's apex predators, it possesses immense strength, remarkable speed, and instincts that demand caution and respect from anyone who crosses its path. For the Hadzabe, confronting a lion is never a matter of pride or a way to prove bravery. Such encounters are considered only in the rarest and most serious situations, when the safety of the community or their ability to survive is genuinely at risk. They understand that challenging an animal of such power carries enormous danger, and every decision is guided by necessity rather than glory. When the hunters come across the fresh tracks of a male lion, the entire group stops and studies the landscape in silence. They listen carefully to the calls of birds, check the direction of the wind, and scan the savanna for the slightest sign of movement before deciding whether to continue or turn back. In a place where danger can remain hidden in plain sight, patience and caution are essential. The Hadzabe understand that true skill in the wilderness is not measured by a willingness to fight, but by the wisdom to avoid unnecessary risks. Knowing when to change course and when to walk away often requires far more experience and judgment than charging into a dangerous encounter. For them, survival depends as much on restraint as it does on courage. The Hadzabe do not see themselves as rulers of the natural world. Instead, they believe that humans are only one part of a much larger system, where every animal and every living thing has its own place and purpose. This deep respect for nature shapes the way they hunt, travel, and live alongside the wilderness that has sustained their people for generations. As the sun sinks toward the horizon, the hunters make their way back to camp carrying the rewards of a long day's journey. Before long, thin streams of smoke rise into the evening sky as a fire is lit and pieces of wild boar begin to roast over glowing embers. The rich aroma drifts through the quiet camp, signaling the end of another day on the savanna and the beginning of a shared meal among family and friends. There are no dining tables and no reserved portions waiting for a single person. The children and elders are always fed first, while the rest of the food is passed from hand to hand around the fire. In the fading light of evening, everyone shares in the day's harvest, and no one eats alone. For the Hadzabe, generosity is not enforced by rules or obligations. It is simply a way of life. For countless generations, the strength of their community has depended on cooperation and the understanding that survival belongs to the group, not the individual. In a land where food is never guaranteed, sharing has become one of the traditions that binds the entire community together. What makes the Hadzabe truly extraordinary is not simply their ability to hunt wild boars or survive in a land shared with lions. Their greatest strength lies in the way they live in balance with nature, taking only what they need to sustain themselves each day and leaving the rest untouched. For generations, this understanding has allowed them to thrive in one of the harshest environments on Earth. In a world that constantly encourages people to acquire more, move faster, and push beyond every limit, the Hadzabe offer a different perspective. Their way of life is a reminder that true wealth is not always measured by what we own or how much we accumulate. Sometimes, abundance comes from recognizing when we already have enough and finding value in the simple things that surround us. Deep in the rugged landscapes of Tanzania, the Hadzabe continue to practice a hunter-gatherer lifestyle that has endured for thousands of years. Equipped with handmade bows and arrows, they venture into the wilderness each day in search of food, carrying with them traditions, knowledge, and survival skills that have been passed from one generation to the next. In a world transformed by modern technology, their connection to the land remains remarkably unchanged.